Padel is growing fast across the UK, and on this episode of Inside Scoop, I'm joined by two people at the centre of the sport.
I thought my life was busy before padel. I was able to find time to go and feed that addiction of playing.
George Modler and Ben Harris founded the Padel Directory, one of the key platforms helping connect the UK padel scene.
We don't want to pretend we're experts in something we're not. We're good at connecting people and bringing people together, and that's ultimately what we do for new clubs.
We talk about how the UK padel market actually looks right now and what they think needs to happen for the sport to scale properly. I'm Jeevan Gill. Welcome to Inside Scoop. Ben, George, welcome to Inside Scoop. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Firstly, tell us about the Padel Directory. What is it and what do you guys do?
Padel Directory. So we're a mobile platform whose sole aim was to connect and grow the sport. We launched it a couple of years ago. In a very short form, it was a court finder map to kind of really push players and know that padel was here in the UK.
Yeah.
Because at the time there wasn't many courts. And then from there it's evolved into a lot more than that now.
So initially the sort of idea came about because you as players couldn't find a court to play. Was that kind of the intention behind it?
Yeah, essentially we discovered the sport fairly quickly in its growth in the UK. And for me, I then looked further and there wasn't tons of information out there, but these big clubs were being built and they needed players. So we just felt that we wanted to showcase the sport. A lot of people were asking us, what is padel? Can I play? So we've decided to create a website with that main focus initially.
And last year, you guys also founded the UK Padel Convention. For those who don't know who you are, sort of tell everybody a little bit about what that is and where that idea came from.
Yeah, so the UK Padel Convention essentially is developed from the website, to call it, and we knew that the website was growing, the numbers were growing, but we felt that to really cement, one, our position in the market, but two, the effect that we have on it, we felt that bringing that to life, to a physical in-person event was the right next step. And we'd sort of debated it and discussed it between ourselves and the rest of the team for a little while. And then, as you know, we hosted the TPD Tuesday event in Barcelona last year after day one of the Padel World Summit. And after that, we went for dinner and a few people said to us, oh, you should do this in the UK, you should do this in the UK. And we wanted to, but we knew that it'd be good, but it wouldn't be a long-term thing if we did that. And I think that's where we decided that it should be on a bigger scale for the whole industry from top to bottom. And that's where the convention came about. Would
you say the convention was the moment that, you know, both of you realised that you were no longer just building the directory, you were building something much bigger?
Yeah, I think throughout 2025, we realised that there wasn't just a focus for players to find out more information or connect. There was also the B2B aspect and helping brands and clubs, and we kind of create that space as part of what we were already doing. So then we separated on the website visibly the B2B and the B2C. So it's business focus, player focus. And then the convention really highlighted our position in the B2B space, but how that nicely relayed back to the B2C space as well. And it just gave us a lot more confidence going into this year that, we've kind of created our own position in this industry in the UK.
Yeah.
Something that we're very proud of, but also take very seriously now that we're like the impartial network that's trying to connect the sport.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's what's ultimately unique about you guys, because there are directories out there and they're either focusing at the B2C or they're just focusing at the B2B. But you've kind of have got this seamless sort of foothold in both. And I think as an operator, I know everything that you do to help other operators out there. But if someone is looking to open a padel club, what are the type of things that they can look to you guys for help? Because there are a lot of people now entering into the marketplace.
Yeah, I think what is important to clarify is that we almost don't do anything ourselves as such. We're almost the first people that we would like a club or someone to come to, and then we can support them, guide them from a neutral standpoint, and then point them in the right direction to the experts who can do it.
Yeah.
So we don't build courts, we don't do groundworks, we don't do architecture work, for example, but we have these partners in place that we see as strong in their field. So then we can point a club or a potential club in the direction of those people, because as we know, there's a lot going on in paddle, and we don't want to pretend we're experts in something we're not. So we're good at connecting people and bringing people together, and that's ultimately what we do for new clubs.
I think on that point, like a prime example is perhaps booking platforms.
Yeah.
It's something that a club comes into the market, wants to kind of, whether
it's
data, fill their courts. Exactly. But they are not sometimes always aware of all of the options that are out there, and they need to pick the one that's right for them. And we're not the ones that decide that, but what we can do is certainly give them the options to decide which one is right for them.
Yeah.
So that's how we kind of handle those conversations and can support clubs, as well as the general awareness of our website does receive a lot of traffic. So it does put your club on the map in terms of somebody that's looking to play their first game, regardless of what booking platform you're on, they can find it on the directory and then go and play and get addicted to this sport.
Yeah. And just touching on that, obviously you guys have access to vast amounts of data. Obviously we're seeing a pop-up of loads and loads of different areas in paddle, sort of clothing and shoes and rackets. What has kind of surprised you this year as being sort of fast growing spaces, or spaces really starting to come into their own?
I don't think, for me anyway, personally, there's a massive surprise. I think I've said it for the last couple of years that paddle is a participation sport. And this year we're really seeing that participation increase. And obviously recent numbers from the LTA and so on is showing that. And I think it's really important to consider that it almost feels like there's not more announcements or big things happening compared to last year. But in the background, the number of players playing it and also playing it again is massively increasing and is clearly showing that it's sustainable. So I think that's probably the biggest change, but I wouldn't say it's particularly surprising. I don't know if you agree with that, but...
No, I completely agree. I mean, there's always other little trends that happen. I feel like at the moment there's a bit of a trend around players watching their game back through cameras. That seems to be kind of like the phase we're in right now, and whether your club has cameras to record your games.
Do your levelling.
Exactly. Levelling is always one that comes up. And then I also felt like the start of this year has gone through a bit of a like wellness phase, with people adding more facilities to their clubs, whether it's like ice baths or saunas, and kind of creating that model. I feel like we had that at the start of this year, but yeah, I mean, it constantly goes back to being a participation sport for me, and people just want to play. They just want to court 3 people and go and play. Do
you think we're at the risk of building too many courts, or is the demand still sort of outpacing the supply? Because as you said, participation's grown, tenfold this year.
I think it's impossible to give a definitive answer.
Yeah.
My opinion is that 1, no, we're not at risk of it for the time being. But 2, I would like to think, and I think we will probably see, that we'll start to see courts and clubs opening in sort of areas that aren't necessarily the big cities. So over the last probably year to 18 months, I would say Manchester's probably been the headline area where the number of clubs opening has been sort of faster and quicker than anywhere else. I think it'll be nice to see sort of the gaps starting to be filled in maybe less densely populated areas, or areas that haven't got paddle courts where people drive 34 minutes to still go and play. And that's still happening more than most people think. And I think if you go back to a busier city, let's take Bristol, it's still very difficult to get a court on the same day or the following day between 5 and 9 p.m. in the evenings. And Bristol's obviously got a very significant number of courts for the city. So I'm personally not worried about it for the time being. I think as long as people continue to do the right things with the right intentions for the sport, which we always talk about, and that pricing is maintained at a fair level, which hopefully as the supply increases, it should come down.
Yeah.
That's the key thing for me.
I mean, what are some of the best things you've seen clubs do to kind of build communities and sort of grow awareness of the sport?
I think it'll always come down to personal preference. Like every player is different, but for me, it's the ones that kind of cater for every demographic and every age of player. I quite like going into a club that perhaps has got like a junior session going on, a senior session that's followed or gone on before, and they're sat in the bar now, and then you've got your regular players, competitive sessions going. Something that is like across the board. Just for me, because I come from like a sports background, that's what I've always kind of been around, just seeing people diving into the sport as such, as opposed to just going as a hobby. But I think it always comes back to every player's different.
Yeah, and obviously you guys travel a lot and you get to see a lot of clubs. If you were to open your own padel club, what would be sort of must-haves for you? What are some of the best things that you've seen that you would put into sort of practice?
I'm actually going to say a bit of a, not a funny one, but an unusual one, a bit of a niche one that I haven't seen in the UK. We talked about Racket X earlier. I played at a club in Miami after Racket X, and it was a really nice club, but it wasn't a particularly luxury one or anything. As you came out of the changing rooms, they had a bag to put like your paddle clothes and towel in.
Okay.
Which it's obviously really niche.
Yeah.
But it's just the little things like that, in my opinion, are really important. And I don't think sometimes that the massive fancy stuff is going to be used every day by the sort of standard paddle player. Mm-hmm. I think it's just the little practical stuff is what, if I were to open a paddle club, that's what I would focus on personally.
Yeah. Well, I think you've kind of touched on something unique, because if you think of paddle as a place people spend their leisure time, you've got to really think about what happens when they arrive. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they've thought about sort of their, like someone's passing memory when they've left the club, which is the same sort of like in hospitality, you think about how the customer feels when they first arrive in a venue and when they leave.
I think it's little touches, like a player journey, like live it through somebody that's discovered paddle for the very first time.
Yeah.
And they walk in, you treat it like they've never seen a paddle club before.
Yeah.
You just want them to feel comfortable from minute one. And I think sometimes we get maybe a little bit over the top on the luxury elements of it. And that can sometimes feel a bit overwhelming for the mass market. Not everybody, but I just think like those fine little touches that the minute you walk through the door, you're just like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah. And I think it's also often really interesting to see how paddle has evolved in other countries and what's sort of unique in those cultures. Because, you know, like even if you go to Spain, it is just purely paddle. There's like nothing else going on in the clubs other than having a beer around the courts. What are some of the sort of different things that you've seen in practice? Because, I mean, you've travelled way more than me and visited way more clubs.
I think, and I don't know if it's to do with like UK culture generally, but the clubs I've noticed that I've played in abroad, they don't just have sort of like microwave meals or frozen food that they just chuck in and it's done. They actually have like almost a proper kitchen. Mm-hmm. And some clubs now in the UK are starting to do it, and I've been to a few clubs recently that are starting to do that.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't need to be anything, again, fancy or expensive, but just almost fresh food that is cooked on site, and people are then more likely to stay and have that. Mm-hmm. Most clubs in Spain will have that, and also I've been to a few clubs in Asia where you can go and you just get like a cheap bowl of pasta after.
Yeah.
And it sounds really simple, but for me, people are much more likely to stay and work or stay and socialise at that club if they can get some half-decent food. So
tell me a bit about your partnership. Everybody kind of has their zone of genius. So what are the things you kind of don't tread on each other's toes because one does it better than the other?
I've definitely taken up the older brother / unc's role.
Yeah.
Uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's just over 10 years between us. And I'd obviously had previous experience running a different company.
Yeah.
Which some of my learnings from that I carried over. So I think naturally I took on the like operations side, and George had a lot of passion, freshly at uni, graduated, and tons of like brilliant and brave ideas that perhaps at first I was a bit kind of hesitant to do too quickly. So we find that balance like pretty fast, I would say.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've actually never fallen out over anything business related. We've never kind of...
Only paddle.
Only we're on
when we're playing court, yeah. When we're playing on court together.
We're on court together, that's when it all comes out. But we've had like long meetings, discussions, disagreements on things, and then they've never lasted more than kind of like an hour or two.
That's standard stuff.
Unless you've carried them away and never told me about them. But
No, we wouldn't be sat today, would we? No, I agree. I think if I get maybe too overconfident or excited about certain things, Ben will then probably rein me in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say vice versa as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the sort of thing we would see every day, week or month.
Yeah.
And we've become very, very aware of that now.
Yeah.
So it works. If I say no sometimes, occasionally I can go back a couple of days later and be like, well, actually, go on in. Or if I'm being too kind of defensive, George can come back to me a couple of days later and say, I think we should actually do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've just started to kind of move from that founder mentality into more of a like professionalized business, which has been great, but purely because of the momentum and growth that we had last year. So yeah, it's a very strong partnership.
And the really serious question, who's a better paddle player?
Me.
Can we stop the podcast now, please?
I muttered me under my breath.
Yeah. No, I agree, Ben is better. Only over the last year I've been able to actually admit that. Yeah, don't really want to talk about that too much more, to be honest.
Neither, we're not talking high level here. We're not experts at playing.
You just mentioned that you're sort of coming out of this sort of founder, really early startup phase. And I'll probably say that's a little bit like us in Padelstars as well. And so what are some of the challenges, like when you go through this transition, that have sort of surprised you as you have to start, I suppose, like putting a bit more infrastructure and professionalism and process into something, that doesn't exist when you're a startup?
Yeah. I think for us is a lot of the growth and momentum has been through relationships that George and I have developed with people.
Yeah. And
going out and listening. And the biggest challenge from going to like founder to business / brand is taking yourself out of the business. So it's overcoming that obstacle of, well, we want to remain well connected and still do all of those things that have helped us get this far. But we also need to take a bit of a back step and actually work on the business.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's become apparent recently. And I've kind of taken that role of trying to step out of it a bit more and not be on the ground in it so much and see it from a different viewpoint.
Yeah.
So I think it's very easy in paddle to kind of get wrapped up in all the noise, especially because there's so much out there.
Yeah.
So I think for us, that's kind of where we've got to. And then also realizing that the systems you had when you founded it were great at the time because you were able to move fast. But now you're like, we need to either change that, do it all again, or I wish we'd have done it this way from day one because we would have saved a lot of issues. But it's all part of living and learning.
Yeah, totally.
And we've like made a ton of mistakes along the way, not like huge ones, but certainly ones that have made us stronger moving forward. And you're very good at that, I would say, with your attitude of like, there's no point stressing about it. Like, it's done. Let's just learn from it and move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think because of the position we're in the UK paddle industry as well, we kind of have to make sure we step out a little bit and not ignore the noise because it's important, but sometimes take less notice because ultimately we have built the Padel Directory and the business to a point where we do have a responsibility within the market on a B2B and B2C front. So we have to make sure that not only are things easy and convenient for people to use, but also accurate. So I think sometimes just taking a bit of time now to make decisions and ensure that we're thinking about things clearly rather than just being reactive and responding to what's going on, which I think is good at the start. But like I said, because we have a responsibility now, we have to do things properly and ensure that only continues to go the same way.
Yeah.
We're also thinking more long-term now than ever before. Like we're talking about projects that we're not even going to launch until the start of next year.
Yeah.
Which a year ago we wouldn't have even dreamed of. And I'm sure you might have been the same. You're probably thinking of clubs opening in summer of next year.
Yeah.
As opposed to kind of like, we need to get the doors open in 6 weeks, for example.
Yeah, I mean, the time flies. Time flies in Padel. What are some of the sort of exciting next things for the Padel Directory that you're allowed to share with me?
Yeah.
That I'm allowed to know about?
A couple of things for me, and then if you add or tell me to stop if I start revealing something we shouldn't.
Go on.
I think evolving like our physical events, they were so popular last year. We've got a lot of ideas to kind of take them to more areas on a perhaps slightly smaller scale and aimed at a player. So more will be revealed on that. I think we're allowed to reveal that. We're also very lucky with a lot of our brand partners. We work with a lot of really great businesses that are starting to take Padel a lot more seriously. And we're going to be involved in a lot of those projects over the next 12 months, which I'm really excited by.
Yeah.
For two reasons, really. Like, it's great to be involved in something that's growing, but also I just love Padel, and I know that the more these big businesses come in and invest in it, everybody wins.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're probably my two.
Yeah, I think I would say the same. And then been asked this quite a lot with people I've sort of caught up with recently or spoken to recently that I've known for a few years now in Padel. And I'd actually say part of what's next is also ensuring we continue to be consistent and sort of almost stay the same with what we've done for the last few years, because there's no point in us forgetting about that or changing that, because then we're starting from scratch with a new concept, a new idea.
Yeah.
So while we have some new events and sort of some new tech features coming along, it's also important that the website and the bits we've started with are still there, and they're being developed, but they're still there, and they're doing the same things they were doing from the start and for the same reason, because that's why we started the business.
Yeah.
So like we've always said this, that there's so many new announcements, or last year there was so many new announcements every day or every week. You'd see this and this go on, and some of them aren't even existing anymore.
No.
To be honest. So I think sometimes it's good to do more and develop things, but ultimately, what's the point of constantly adding things if you're going to then take away old bits because you're not essentially growing? So yeah, adding plenty more to come. But
and I know you get a lot of pressure applied on you, because everyone's like, when are you doing your event at the summit? Like, so some things you're just...
I think it's that safe space that people feel that they can go to an event and sort of not stand around awkwardly making small talk, but because they know we're sort of going to set the tone of it, that they're going to enjoy it. It's going to be a safe space, and it can be sort of as formal or as informal as they want.
Mm-hmm. And I guess now, like for some of these things that you're doing, you can't just do it being the two of you. You've got to kind of build a support system and a team around you. What are the sort of the key attributes you've been looking for in like the people that you've asked to join you? Because obviously a culture is what makes a company stronger.
We've been lucky in the last 3 months that when we've added to our team, people have kind of bought into the mission of what all of this is for and what it's about and what our position in the market is. So this isn't about taking short-term wins if you get the opportunity, especially from a commercial point of view. Mm-hmm. That's not for us. Like, we're thinking more over the next 1, 2, 3 years, and also do more people win. So we don't want it to just be the Padel Directory wins. We want it to be the Padel Directory, its clubs, its players, and everybody wins as a result of things that we do. And people just being kind of honest and understanding that it is a fast growing market, and we are pulled in different ways, and we are doing different things. And we've added some brilliant people to our team most recently that have kind of just bought into all of that, understand me and George, want me and George just to succeed, whilst also wanting Padel to succeed. So yeah, bit of a long-winded answer, but it's purely come down to just good people wanting other good people to do well. And that's kind of been our success story so far with adding extra people.
Yeah.
So if a player was picking up a racket today, what would be your advice to them?
For me, like, be prepared to get addicted. Like, from the very first time I played, I then found time that I didn't think I had to go and play Padel. So like, I thought my life was busy before Padel, and then I found Padel, and obviously I work in it now, but from a player perspective, I was able to find time 3 or 4 times a week to go and feed that addiction of playing, just because of the buzz, the mental and physical like joy it brought me at that moment. I just wanted more of it, and still do. So yeah, just be wary of it becoming an addiction. Is probably my answer to that.
Yeah, I would say 1, probably play with people you like, and 2, just be consistent when playing. Don't have to do anything fancy.
Yeah.
And as if you ever saw me play paddle, it definitely doesn't look pretty, but try and be as consistent as possible.
I agree.
And that's the most important thing.
I've had you as a paddle partner. Cheers. You're super encouraging, because I'm really bad.
that would actually be something I would add as well. Like, just realised how raw paddle is in the UK, and that a lot of people are coming from no racket background ever. So like, just bear in mind that people will come in at different levels, and they will also say they're at a different level than perhaps what they think they are. So a little bit of patience until you find like the right group or right club community for you to kind of kick on, but just enjoy it. Like,
is that how you actually met? Was it through playing paddle?
Yeah. Genuinely met on like an open match.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Another thing, you might actually just start a business out the back of it.
It does happen a lot. Like, there's a lot of people in the industry that have met through paddle and then done projects together. So yeah, ours was an open match, joined through a booking platform, and then just continue chatting after.
And the rest is history.
Exactly.
Well, Ben, George, thank you for joining me on Inside Scoop. And before we go, can you let all the listeners know where they can find you? What are your socials?
Very simple, just the Padel Directory. We only have 1 account. We don't have a separate account for the convention, just the Padel Directory.
And is that on Instagram?
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and then the website itself is just thepadeldirectory.co.uk.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.